Present as members of the Committee for Education Subcommittee, Robert Zagorowski. He's present in person. Bill Crochane, member of the Education Subcommittee. He's present in person. On Zoom, we have Gary Labrie and Fred Krampitz.
And Jim Tillotson.
And Jim Tillotson is on Zoom, and he's also a member of the Education Subcommittee. So the subcommittee does have a quorum to conduct the meeting. For the school committee, we have the vice chair, Susan Lopes, school committee member, Grace Schofield, school committee member, Don Lamoth, school committee member, David Barcelo, school committee member, Sandra Perrette, school committee member, Jason Dow, and school committee member, Doug Gerard. And they are all present. Also attending is Laura DeMarcus, the president of the CEA, Alvin Morton, the acting superintendent of schools. Carla Grace is here as the administrative assistant for the city council. She is present. And Scott Chapdelaine is present, and he's the director of maintenance. Thank you. Here.
Councilors Pena Costello.
Here.
Lopez. Tillotson.
Here.
Zagorowski.
Here.
Crochane.
Here.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is be it ordered that the school committee requests that the city of Chicopee purchase the real property located at 350 Memorial Drive, Chicopee, Mass. For school purposes. This will be sent to the finance committee and the education committee, and it was ordered that these two committees would be done separately for discussion. I'm going to open up the meeting with any questions from the city council in regards to the purchase of this building for educational use. Any questions, Mr. Labrie, Mr. Krampitz, Mr. Tillotson, who are on Zoom? Okay, any questions from Mr. Crochane or Mr. Zagorowski? Okay, so there's no question. Mr. Morton, do you have any statements in regards to the plan for educational curriculum if this property is purchased?
No, I don't. I mean, besides the information that we provided to the city council, that we previously did a presentation at school committee that approved this venture that we were looking to purchase 350 Memorial Drive, the PowerPoint, and I think the questions that the mayor's office had put forth, we also provided answers to that also too.
Okay. Do you have any public statement and for the public record in regards to any of the questions or answers that have been given to you by the mayor's office?
The only thing I can say is that we're using one-time money for a long-term effect is what we're looking to try to do to make a difference in the city of Chicopee and Chicopee Public Schools. As one of the questions was asked is the assessment of the school department. We've previously had 2 assessments done by 2 different agencies when we were at 180 Broadway. And we also the fact that we have a 99-year lease at 134 Dulong Circle. And the other piece was, why haven't we gone to the state first? Obviously, we would try to get approval from city council first and foremost before we submitted the final form, construction form to use ESSER money that has to be reasonable and necessary as we use ESSER funds currently as we speak for 134 Dulong Circle to pay the actual lease we are leasing up until 2025. And ESSER money runs out September 2024.
Thank you. Any questions in regards to Mr. Morton's presentation? Mrs. Perrette from the school committee.
Question as to who did the independent appraisal, because it doesn't say that on here. It just said there was an appraisal of 350 Memorial Drive of $8.3 million.
I think Mr. Chaplain can answer that, but that came directly from the realtors.
I don't have the information on who actually did the appraisal on that.
And that was from Mr. Chaplain, that answer. Any other questions in regards to the educational use if this building is purchased? Any comments? Mr. Chaplain, do you have any comments in regards to the maintenance and the expense of the maintenance if the building is purchased?
I believe those answers to questions will happen when we have our finance meeting.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Tillotson, do you have anything to ask or any comments in regards to what the curriculum is going to be?
Not at this moment.
Mr. Labrie or Mr. Krampus?
Not now.
Okay, Mr.
I
Ziegler.
do have a question. In the handout, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to bring it up or if there's going to be other parts of the presentation, but it talked about the various programs that would be moved here. Is there an expected increase in the amount of staff, or would this simply be a transfer from existing buildings to the proposed Mass Mutual building?
So currently at 134 Dulong Circle, it wouldn't be an increase in staff, only on the back end. I guess if you're looking from the increase, if we actually move IT, the 18 to 22-year-old program and Chicopee TV, we would be looking to add HVAC and plumbing. And obviously we'd have to get teachers for HVAC and plumbing. Any type of positions that are being proposed or positions that we're looking to add currently as we are at 134 Dulong Circle, like a community, a parent engagement facilitator and parent liaisons. These are all things that are in the works. So only two positions we look to possibly add would be the HVAC and plumbing at some point, and possibly talking to Mr. Chaplain, we probably would have to add another custodian to 350 Memorial Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else in regards to Mrs. Perrette?
Because of the fact that there's discussion that we were going to be moving from 180 Broadway in, I guess, 2016, 2017. So technically, we did not leave 180 Broadway because of COVID. So can the ESSER monies be utilized for the purchase of 350 Memorial Drive, when in all actuality, there was plans here for us not to be in that building?
I would say we did move because of COVID and because of the ventilation is the first part of the PowerPoint, because of the ventilation, because of the antiquated state of 180 Broadway. We'd already done an assessment before because of the actual decay of the building, because of snow and brick, and also because of not being ADA accessible. So there's a lot of contributing factors, but COVID and the ventilation piece pushed us to the point where we had to move. So it's a combination of both. And I think we still would probably be able to make a reasonable and necessary argument in our application of moving to 350 Memorial Drive.
Although technically, by the dates, there was discussion of us already leaving. So I'm just questioning that, because
we were looking, we didn't have a place to go, but I'm saying that when COVID came and we actually were doing ventilation, looking at ventilation through all the buildings in the district, that is what pushed us to the point where we really had to find somewhere else.
But we were not going to stay at 180 Broadway anyway, because we were going to be asked to leave.
There was no plans and nothing we were looking for before in my notice and my information before COVID that we were doing an assessment each and every year because we'd had to do so much maintenance just to keep 180 up to par with the roof and to make sure that the snow doesn't fall off the building. So each and every year there was something going on. And we'd also just put that new parking lot in. So we were not looking to leave immediately, but the actual COVID did push us over the top when we were looking at the ventilation of the building. That was the final factor in us moving out.
Anyone else? Mrs. Lopes.
Good evening, everyone. I did take a wonderful tour of this building. And I have 10 pages of notes. I was just hoping you can indulge me because we are here this evening, correct me if I'm wrong, you would like to know what the educational purposes are that we would use this building for?
Yes, please.
Right. So again, I have a list of notes and I appreciate you just hearing me out here. For starters, it was very welcoming right when you walk in the door. Very elaborate, no doubt about it. You can't deny that fact. Was neat and clean and spotless. I'm just going to read off my notes here and just kind of, the auditorium can be used for training space. We can have regional meetings in this building. All the rooms could be sectioned off. We wouldn't have to rent out rooms for training and area hotels is what I was told. I guess we go to Wyckoff and a hotel in the city of Holyoke for quite a certain reasons. That we could have school committee meetings there. There may be office space in the upstairs. There's room for 7 departments. Some of the bigger rooms, you could have administrative people on one side and clerks on the other. The building was built in 1990. We learned that morning we took the tour. And in early 2000, it was renovated. It definitely is spotless. It's maintained. It's attractive. The furniture in there was wonderful. It was very conducive to what we need furniture in those rooms and what purposes we would be using them for, like meetings and offices. So they had big offices with tons of tables. 3 rooms were filled with computers, and I was told that those would be great training places for our paraprofessionals, so they can get their credentials up. It would be, instead of going to HCC and STCC, we could train them right in-house here. We could bring back senior lunches. We could also use the fully equipped kitchen for Serve Safe for our food staff. The furniture in there alone, again, was very impressive. There was a full kitchen with huge coolers, ovens, fryolators, coffee makers, fully equipped. There was a lot of talk about using it for the kids to learn on it. It would make it really worthwhile. Maintenance room had there was 2 boilers that were in great shape. Garage doors, office space, tons of tools. There was a generator outside. When we went to the conference center and the guest rooms, which totally partitioned off from the rest of the building that I just talked about. We could have a community wing in there and have a welcome center for parents and families, is what I was told by interim superintendent. Beautiful brown paneling on all the walls. The whole first floor could be used for training rooms. We talked about a parent engagement center there. Mr. Mackin would move athletics there as the athletic department. We would get as much out of the buildings that we possibly could, especially using them for the students. One woman commented that she could see the space being used up really fast. It's ADA compliant. There's a game room. We talked about a game room with teen center in it for 18 to 22-year-old program. Superintendent Morton commented on. Quick here, a couple more pages. A teen center on the community side. Like I said, the Boys and Girls Club, we talked a lot about that. They're closed on the weekend, so we could, in the future, open something up and welcome the teenagers in our city because it's on the bus route. We could even co-op and rent some space out. Valley Opportunity Council would want some space in there. We have an impressive 18 to 22-year-old program in our city that right now houses, it has 40 students in it. So we could really expand on that program, or at least make it better. Again, we would save on training. We could have our regional meetings there. We could offer counseling services. Our vision and hearing and dental department could move into these rooms or these building. We could save on parent training. We can work on parent engagement. We can share space with other city departments if they'd be willing to move. The maintenance department would handle the scheduling to renters on a daily basis. We were just assured with all the questions that we asked, administration had the answers. So that's the notes that I'm reading off of. Everyone, thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for that presentation, Mrs. Lopes. Mrs. DeMarcus, please.
So since Ms. Lopes brought up the way the building looks. So first of all, looking through the plan as an educator, I would say that the ideas for the trainings in the building, from my perspective and the perspective of students and how they learn the spaces we have right now, it's really a progressive forward. It's really moving forward for those ideas. And that would be exciting for the students and for people. However, that being said, when I talk to my members and put out a survey, our biggest consideration still remains with when we're hearing all those wonderful things, that's great. But when we're in buildings where it's got a lot of issues and a lot of buildings have, you know, doors that don't work and things like that, it's, I guess my members would want me to say that their concern is the money being spent here instead of where it could be on the other buildings? And I don't honestly know if that is part of what the ESSER money can be spent on, but I just would be remiss if I did not say that it sounds all well and beautiful, but as someone in the current buildings, it's, you know, it's difficult to listen to that and know that, you know, our students and many of our staff are in buildings that are not even remotely close to that. They're very old and you know, need a lot of repair. So I just want to make sure and put that out there. I don't know again about the ESSER money, but I read that ESSER was spent for the Dulong and now it's being spent on that. And so that was my only concern that my members would want me to bring forward is the state of the, you know, buildings and is that different? That being said, you know, if there's a bigger plan or if there's plans on the table for those buildings at the same time and we're being considered and they're being considered, that would be awesome. And I think people would buy into it more. But again, the programs do sound very progressive. And if that's the way of Chicopee and all of us can look forward to that, that would be exciting as an educator. I want to be realistic. Thank you.
Mr. Lamont.
Yes, when we moved into Dulong, we were requested by the city council to start looking for a place so we wouldn't be renting forever. And under ESSER, we're paying $280,000 a year for rent that's being paid by ESSER, which comes to an end in 24 or 25? 24. So after 24, it's going to have to come out of the city side because we can't use students' funds to pay for rent. So that $280,000 is going to have to come out of the city side. We asked, one of the questions was asked, could we buy Dulong? The answer was no, we couldn't. So we looked into adding additional years to the rent. And the rent looked like it was going to skyrocket to around $330 if the taxes never went up. And based on what happens with taxes, they always go up. So that's why we were looking. Now, if there's a better place, I've had a few people tell me, well, why don't you take one of the schools? Okay, so if we take one of the schools, that means taking Stryber or Belcher. Is that really educationally sound? So, and if we do take a Belcher or a Stryber, we're going to need money to put into the schools and it's going to need to be expanded because they're not big enough. So if the city council don't want us to buy this with the one-time money, then we're open to listening to how they want to fund it.
Thank you. Mrs. Perret.
A question. My understanding is that we were approved for, or they're still looking at the Anna Berry School. We can progress on that.
We are approved as of yesterday.
Okay. So what is it a possibility that administrative offices could be incorporated into the Anna Berry School, there would be a wing for administrative offices?
I don't think that would fit into the plan. And actually would be, I wouldn't recommend that. We can barely fit in that particular piece to build a school and to put all the children we're projecting to be in the Berry with the new things that are coming forward. I don't know whether we would be able to do that and have us in the Berry School to get all the kids plus staff in that particular building.
Would it, I know with, COVID that we've all progressed to the Zoom meetings, and even companies have reduced the necessity for people to come into the office. Would it be beneficial to us to be more attuned and accessible to our parents, to even separate offices, that not all the administrative offices are together, that they might be spread out throughout the school system in different buildings? Because as we found with COVID, it's not necessary to sit side by side. I see that in many businesses that things are broken up. Just a thought to make us accessible. Is that something that we could possibly do, as well as education-wise, looking at the programs that we have in place for CTE, a review of all of them and what the student participation is? Are they all still relevant to everything we do?
So to answer both of your questions, for us to break up central office, I don't think that would be sound, because we all interwork on different services. You have transportation that works with homeless and foster care. You have everybody from attendance to central enrollment that work together. Student support services that works together with special ed. We do accommodate families that cannot physically come into meetings. We still offer an option of Zoom meetings, so that's still a possibility. But for us to be under one roof, we're centralized locations, centralized offices, and we call it central support services, that communication needs to be. And sometimes just to walk down the hall to have a meeting or conversation is very beneficial. And the real reason is we have no space in other schools to put other offices and people in. The spaces within buildings is very limited as we speak right now. The second part of the second question was, are all of our CTE options still viable? I would say yes, more viable than the other, because we still have so many kids that we are not able to get into CTE. So we're trying to put more options we can provide, and we're building a pathways program over at Chicopee High School with the education in criminal justice and the cosmetology that comes online. So we're trying to do other things next year too, to keep growing, become on the other side of the city. The non-dirty shops that we're trying to provide at Chicopee High School also too. So I think they're very, very viable as we speak. And we're also looking at the market, the job market. HVAC and plumbing is something that's still huge. For us to offer those programs would be very beneficial to our students in the community. And then to go back to Mr. Mock's statements, everything that she's talking about is in the plans, in the works. Bellamy and Barry was on the last on the list to do any type of renovations, but Barry's been approved by MSBA, so that is something that kind of comes off the list. But Bellamy will keep adding things to. We have changed the locks at Bellamy, or we're still working on those locks. So we also got a grant for over $2 million to do HVAC in all of our schools. We do have a plan where we're adding AC in all our schools. We're continuously working on that. Those things will be doing as we do things over break, Spartan Christmas break, February break, spring break, and over the summer, we'll keep adding those things and updating our schools, changing out windows and different things. And we built these type of projects into ESSER funds. So they are on our ESSER plan also too.
Yes, another question.
Yes, Mrs.
And I know that it has been mentioned before that in Bellamy, for example, that not all the restrooms had hot water. Everything is functional in all of the restrooms.
That is news to me.
They're all open.
That is news to me. And Mr. Chapdelaine is shaking his head that he wasn't aware of that. Yeah, I don't.
It was just something that had been mentioned to me. So
he may be able to speak to that.
All the restrooms are functioning, and because that would be something related to health and safety in terms of that ESSER money could be used for. And there's hand sanitizers. I haven't been through the building, but hand sanitizers.
We have enough PPE to last us for a while.
Okay. And the water fountains, has there been any change in water fountains?
We are actually adding bubblers as we speak. But we're making sure we can actually put them in the correct places, that the actual plumbing is there. I think we added a couple of bubblers at Chicopee High School and Chicopee Comp, and we're going throughout the buildings to see where we can add bubblers.
And the reason I'm asking that is, again, because that, is in relation to health and safety and sanitation and COVID and the use of ESSER funds. And are there other ways that we can enhance the education as of the students because of the lag that they may be at based on the presentation that was done, I think 2 meetings ago. The student education status.
The gaps.
The gaps, yeah.
Yeah, we're adding things. We added a new curriculum on elementary level, K to 5, ELA curriculum, CKLA. And we also added a new science curriculum, 6 through 8. We added a social emotional curriculum, Trails to Wellness, pre-K to 12. We're looking at a preschool curriculum next year and a math curriculum 6 through 12. So we're adding curriculum to do it. We're looking at adding, we're instructional coach at Chicopee High School. We've had it posted for a while. Nobody has applied for that to add services to Chicopee High School. We have curriculum specialists in instructional coaches in our middle schools, both our middle schools and also in our elementary schools. So we're plugging those things. We're offering after school programs for those learning gaps, for those breaks after school. In the fall, we offered one. We'll offer another one in the spring. So we've been doing those things. We offer summer school enrichment. We're going to try something different this year. So we're offering all those things that we are using and plugging with ESSER money also.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Just when we did the tour, there was a mention about possibly utilizing the facility for our homeless population or homeless students. And I wasn't quite sure what you meant by that at the time.
No, we were not going to house anybody. We would have wraparound services where we
Okay.
could have services there for our homeless family, like having a store or having something there. Because right now we operate out of a closet at Dulong Circle that we give out coats and we give out hygiene products. We give out backpacks. So our inventory is limited in that closet that we have, but we can provide more wraparound services.
It was strictly for supplies and not necessarily for any type of
No living
residential.
conditions. No,
Okay.
no, we're not getting in the business of doing that.
No, I know, because that would be you'd need
A license.
a license, you'd need security,
Correct.
etc.
But we would like to offer a whole, that is one of the many services we like to offer. Obviously with VOC, if they wanted space, DCF, the police department said they would like to have an office for off hours. There's a lot of the things we're trying to do is accommodate families that parents work at certain times. We can do a lot of things off hours in this building, counseling services before and after school. Kids can actually build relationships with the SROs after school, having an office there. A hearing and screening, a hearing and vision screenings can be done. So there's a variety of things we can actually transpire and have their training over there. We just now bought a license for ACT, which will provide the work keys. We are now licensed to provide the work keys, which is the licensure that's needed for pairs to be highly qualified. So we are a license owner of that. So now we can train our pairs in-house when once they're hired. They don't have to go to HCC. And we will make them pay a minimal fee in order to get licensed so we can make sure we have a high quality staff. A building like this will provide us the opportunity to put people in there and take the test right away because it's online and we can get people licensed right away once we hire these individuals. So this opportunity provides a space, wraparound services. It provides a program for the 18 to 22-year-old program, which is now located in Fairview Elementary School. And they get real life experiences instead of going to the Lupa Zoo and other places. They can get the experiences working over here at 350 Memorial Drive by working in the cafeteria and different things like that. We're trying to build a community center. This only benefits the community, it benefits students, it benefits families with a lot of the services we can provide. And the biggest thing for me is if you don't know where Dulong Circle is, you will never find Dulong Circle. And parents, there is no bus line there. Parents cannot get there. This is on a main line on Memorial Drive, and parents can get there to have more meaningful participation in their child's education. And then also, if you go into Dulong Circle, when you go into the main office, there is no sense of confidentiality because it's so quiet when parents come, so cramped in there when parents come in to enroll. This would provide us a space to take parents to talk to, have a conversation for parents can feel comfortable. This is their first experience or first introduction to the Chicopee Public Schools when they come into the central office because we do central enrollment. And we want to make sure that there's a positive introduction to the Chicopee Public Schools. And we're doing the best we can to Dulong Circle, but I just think we can do so much more by having a space that's advantageous for not just the students in the community, but it's advantageous for the community as a whole. We can provide trainings regionally wide. We have more than enough training space. Right now, we rent out spaces to do our physical restraint training for all the staff members. We wouldn't have to rent out space or anything like that. So there's savings in a lot of places that we currently pay money to do different.
Thank you, Mrs. Demarcus, please.
Mr. Lamont, thank you for that, because I didn't know all of that, and that was really interesting. So a couple of questions or comments and questions. First of all, Mr. Morton's absolutely right about Dulong. It is really inaccessible to people insofar as being off the bus line. That's been a huge comment to me from a lot of different people. It's really hard to find. It's really hard to get to, especially our most needy parents who usually need a bus or something. It's really hard. So that is one thing I do want to comment. But I am also curious to the city council. I would ask, so if Mr. Lamoth is what he is saying, if I understand it right, that somehow by 2024, you need a place to go, and it's either going.
We either need a place to go or they pick up the rent.
Right. So my question to the city council is, so what is the plan? I agree with them. Like, so what would the plan be if this isn't approved in order to accommodate either continuing to rent or buying something else, because something would have to be found by that time, and that's coming up quick. And then so on that also, I'm wondering at what point do you have to decide how to spend those extra monies? Because if they have to be spent by 2024, I would think this decision has to be made relatively soon. So that's a time constraint. And then the third part to that is, I'm curious if there's been a cost analysis at all done as to if you take the amount you spend on buying something, which we all know, you know, realty goes up in value where rent doesn't. And all the programs you're talking about that would, you know, maybe save paras if they can go and train there and stuff. Has anyone done a cost analysis to see would it ultimately be more valuable? I'm just curious if that was done. And here's my question to the city council, if that we don't approve these, how is the Chicopee Public Schools going to pay for the place to live? Because I don't want it to come out of our salaries at some point when we go to negotiate in a couple of years.
Legally, it can't.
Okay, good. That's
legally, it can't come out of net school spending.
So
we're a net school spending district.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a member of the public here. Attorney Garvey was nice enough to come over to me and say that this individual would be allowed to speak. So if we could have the member of the public come to speak to us and also to identify the name, your address, please.
Lisa Bienvenue, 34 Everett Street. There are multiple conversations going on here, and I think that's what the issue is. So first, there's the question of ESSER funds. Having space for VOC is not an acceptable use of ESSER funds. Having space for DCF is not an acceptable use for ESSER funds, as I understand it. ESSER funds are specifically for the children. So that's not discounting that these community programs would be an asset to the community, but let's think of what path we're in. And actually, Mrs. Perrette brought up something, and it's interesting about 180 Broadway, because in September of 2020, the city planner, Lou Pouliot, had a little Zoom presentation on the Falls Village overlay. And in that presentation, he marks 180 Broadway as excess property that would probably be turned over to the city and sold at some point, which I thought was interesting. So that was in there. So there are a lot of balls that are juggling, and you still have to get the approval from the state to use the ESSER funds for this. So the question is, does the city want to buy this building for the school department without ESSER funds? because you're not guaranteed to be able to use the ESSER funds. So that would be $8 million. Is the city willing to pay for that? And I don't care about the furniture. That furniture, the woodworking, the glamour of the building was mentioned quite a few times. I don't care about any of that. The kids don't care about any of that. The services in there would be a good thing, but all of that other stuff is just glitz. That's nothing. That's window dressing. That's cosmetics. That has to be overlooked because that's not for the kids. So you have to decide, will the city want to pay $8 million? That's the idea that you have to go in with. And will they still want to pay for Anna Berry School if they have to pay the $8 million? And goodness knows we need Anna Berry. So, you know, if the city's on board to do it, that's good. Then it's a good thing. It would be good for everybody. But if the city's not willing to pay that money, I agree. Then we want to make sure we use all the ESSER funds. So thank you.
Mr. Lamont.
Yes, and part of the presentation in the backup packet that was given, with the approval of the city council, then a letter would go forward to ESSER to explain to lay out our program of what we want to do. If at that point they said, no, we can't spend the money there, then guess what? Unless the city, like she said, unless the city said we'll buy it, it's not going to happen. But we can't go forward with that until we have a firm commitment one way or the other.
Thank you. Mr. Morton.
And I think we're just, as she stated, we're talking, there's multiple conversations. So we're talking two different things. The Berry Elementary is different than this whole particular piece. That's totally MSBA. We got approved for, we're talking about an 80-20 split. That is not in this particular piece. And as Mr. Lamont just now said, that even if city council approves this, because that is the only entity that can acquire property, we still have to pass the test and go before DESI. DESI could shoot it down. If DESI shoots it down, as Mr. Lamont said, it's you know, for lack of a better term, it's dead in the water. There's no need to even go forward because we're not asking the city to pay this money, because the reason we're bringing this forward, because there is no burden on the taxpayers. This is a one-time set of money for a long-term effect. And that's what we're looking for. So for us, with city council making approval and having a vote, which school committee's already approved to go forward with, if they second that particular piece, then it makes our application to the state even stronger for that particular piece. We still have to pass the test of reasonable and necessary, and we feel as though we can make a strong argument that it's something that benefits students, because it is services there that will benefit students. Students will be housed in that particular building, the 18 to 22-year-old program. There are students there. Students will have internships there. They can actually have services there. CTE students will be doing a lot of work in that building and renovation, so they're getting, you know, hands-on experience within that building. So we are providing services and different things for students. All the things we're doing are having students in mind. That is the biggest piece we're talking about. And we're also thinking about not having to worry about a central office ever again for the central administrative office, regardless who's in central office.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any questions from anybody? Okay. Yeah, Mrs. Lopes.
Just want to quickly add, it's for students and our families.
Thank you. All right. Just as a review, is there anyone audio or video taping this meeting or any part of this meeting? Please raise your hand. So make a note that no one is doing that. Okay. Any questions? Comments from anybody?
Just a question. There is something on the, assuming that it belongs to the. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Do I have a motion? Mr. Zagorowski, you want to make a motion to place this on file? Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Tillotson,
Yes.
Lopez, Dobos. I'm sorry. Excuse me, I was sorry. Tillotson, Lopez, Zagorowski,
Yes.
Piniac Costello,
Yes.
Kushein.
Yes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes of October 13th.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselors Tillotson,
yes,
Lopez, Zagorowski,
Yes.
Piniac Costello,
Yes.
Kushein.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Roll call.
Yeah, send it to me too, because I can't.
Counselors Tillotson,
yes.
Lopez, Zagorowski,
Yes.
Piniac Costello,
Yes.
Kushein.
Yes.
Supposed to be an email.
Thank you. It was great seeing everybody again from the school committee. Thank you.